Peace. Salam. Alhamdulillah. I really like this format of video. The problem with writing is that it takes effort to write it, and then it takes effort to read it, all extra, rather than just trying to talk. Uh, I lose very much of like the human stuff that a computer can't read if you use text as opposed to video. So, inshallah, I will try to explicate an idea which I consider has been revealed to me, which is Mao, about how the future is going to work. How do we de escalate the police state but keep all of the complicated infrastructure going that the police state was there to protect? First off, you make the infrastructure all in public interest. Self harm only happens when something really bad has happened first. Generally, it happens in bad situations and where something works in the interest of the public. To try and demolish it is self harm. It's the same for killing people. If only you knew. You don't create more resources by invading, you create more resources by collaborating. Mao is a design to, well, based on the Somali principle of Zir, which is a system that's worked for a long time that got colonialized away, but is essentially the premise of Mao, which is how do you apply Sharia to people who, for whatever reason, they don't have a religion or want one, and they don't necessarily want to acknowledge something more than they can see. None of that is contingent on my wanting them to be safe and happy. Nope, other way around. My wanting them to be safe and happy isn't contingent upon how they think they were made, what they plan for the future, or how they act now, so long as it can be made reasonable. You get maximum liberality, maximum possibility if you're on a desert island. No one cares what you do. After that, the easiest way to get along is if everyone agrees on the same stuff. But what we're not having is a world where everyone lives by the same rules. Because we don't want a world where everyone agrees on all the same stuff. We want diversity. Life is diversity. It keeps growing diversity at every one of its joints. Alhamdulillah for our joints. My premise for the Islamic State is that you absolutely have a right not just to your food, but to your substances, whatever you need them for. My provision that I'm going to provide for you doesn't extend to alcohol, but a real great benefit of peace in Afghanistan is going to be that the best opium gets to grow unimpeded, and that's good for the world. Mao is on two parts, so it's more complicated than Zir. It's inspired by Zir. Two parts. They're both called interventions. Preemptive mediation. They're both called mediation. And post fact mediation. If I'm trying to make a peaceful society, I need it to be, if you've got a problem with someone, without it getting escalated to the point where something bad has happened, you're able to maybe both go to someone that you both trust and sort out the problem. In the 21st century, the third millennium, we also have this profound bonus and benefit. to make this person's job easier, so they can have access to infinite resources to sort out this person's problems. And infinite like skills. If they need a couples therapy thing, great, we've got couples therapists. If they need to have a PlayStation each, they can have a PlayStation each. All you need, preemptive mediation, someone that both people can agree on, who preferably is going to be a good person to be able to sort out these kinds of disputes. They don't want any other title apart from they're the person that you would go to. And we'd like to have some people like that on hand all the time. People who within their communities can just be the de facto, well, we trust them to sort out our individual disputes to the extent that we can. This is not the same as them having jurisdiction. So whilst it has been tried, the idea of a religious police is absolutely contemptible, damnable. If it was in our scriptures, we'd say it's holy and praise it, but it's not. And so it's the most violent addition and the most desecrating addition you could make to say that the jurisdiction of this law belongs to other than God. There is no such thing as religious police. I'm sorry that it ever seemed that way to anyone. And I know people have implemented these sorts of designs. In the area of the Islamic world that works kind of best right now, that's Malaysia and Indonesia, they have religious law enacted and Sharia courts alongside secular law. We're not going to do that in the future because secular law is fraught. It's a myth. And it's destructive. It's inherently persecutory. You say there's got to be a super class, try and make it this way for an underclass, with middle class with weapons, who don't really do what those ones say, whilst no one does. While some people vulnerable in bottom class get persecuted by the weapon class. And the big masses go, oh, so those people are in charge because look, those people are in prison. But check each link. Do the police do what the government says and make sure that when the government says this isn't going to happen, that it doesn't happen? No. Do the police follow at least in the capacity so that the government says that when this will happen, this will happen? No. Critically not in London, critically not the Metropolitan Police. I'll explain when I need to. The masses aren't helped at all by the weapon class nor the shiny pants class. And they're certainly not helped by the persecution of the persecuted. Oh, Jesus, the Joris Bonsons of this world, they're not helped by the persecution of the persecuted, nor the weapon class, nor however much people, it's said to them that is in their bank account. They're not helped by the persecution of the persecuted, which is all the police state effectively does. And it is effectively all the police state does. Mao has a possible pan-faith implementation or a possible design for an implementation of Sharia that doesn't require anything more than its practices and protocols. It's built on the idea that we would have preemptive mediation. So that if you've got a problem with anyone or just a general problem, then there's people from the state who are very well equipped, very well connected, have a directory of where we can find people with good skills and people might be able to help you even better. And like, imagine if you could go into a police station and say, hey, I've got a problem, and that they would try and fix it for you. Well, that's what we'll have. They'll can be called focus centers and designed like focus centers because it's a nice design and they're nice, and it's sort of that idea of whilst you're on your adventures, go there. I think that'll be very important, because I see a lot of travel happening. I don't see people staying still if they're not tied to jobs. And I like that travel happening. People are going to get better manners by meeting new people, and being on their best behavior when they meet new people. I like what's going to happen organically of like there's already places in London that are almost exclusively Muslim. That's great, and I want that. There's an area in Manchester which is the gay part. It's great. Everyone respects that, and it makes a really obvious place to have your. It's not the parading that gets me, but and I'm gonna try that. Leave that right out of it. I lived most of my life without ever opining against other people's sexual interests, and it's certainly not interesting to the discussion of Mao. Right. So please forgive me. It's a human thing to be creeped out by stuff more than we should. We're cautious. That berry, we want to be really, really sure it's a good berry to eat before you eat it. And any berry that even looks similar to it, we could be creeped out by it. The smell doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad for us, but we're not going to go near it because it smells bad. We've all got those. We all operate by those. They're crazy esoteric compared to reality in that they're built of categories. And in most cases, categories that are really, really hard for us to actually define in terms of what exists. I got no problem at all with people thinking that it's creepy as fuck that I'm mostly attracted to children. And God bless you. I hope you have good relationships with the people that you hold close and the people that you hold far. And with Muslims, most of whom I haven't heard endorsing child sex, but it's part of my religion, and I at least want marital rights for children. You don't need that in every community. That's the benefit of an Islamic state. Not everything has to apply to everyone. And it's a good example that, like, well, those things are equally apart from each other, you know. Now, if you have a problem with anything or a problem with someone, you can go to a place for preemptive mediation. What's post-fact mediation? Post-fact mediation is the analog for the justice system. It is, if something bad has happened, what happens next? Resolution. In the comfiest possible environment, ideally, the person wronged and the person implicated, it's implied that they've done something wrong. Well, they're implicated. It's just so the complainant and the implicated. And relevant parties, they're going to meet in the most comfortable place possible with the fewest people around them as is necessary to be able to bring forth a resolution that either these two parties, preferably, they're both happy with, so that all can be considered done and dusted. It is resolved. We go on. Probably some certificate of this is what we considered the resolution. Have everyone sign it. 4 witnesses are generally a Sharia thing. But I mean, just videoing it or even writing it down suffices for that condition. It changes stuff about the Gospels for me, but that's cool. I like it if the stuff that's mentioned just once in the Gospels becomes true instead of having to be attested 4 times. It obviously tells a completely different story. But yeah, writing it down is the same as making lots of witnesses. How do we come to a resolution if a bad thing has happened? Depends on the thing. Who's good at choosing it? Again, trusted people within the community who have some kind of aptitude toward the problem at hand. We'll get to trusted people within our community afterwards. What they do when they're hanging out here. The complainant, the accused. Oh, and surely side by side. Well, no, it is a temporary hierarchy of that's come about on mutual agreement for all these three people. There's a chance that the person who's accused doesn't want to have anything to do with it, and that's the last and most complicated thing that we need to figure out. And it's already figured out. Well, we've got infinite resources. If there's a way to make people happy by giving them most of the resources, because most of the law is about how the lawmakers don't want to share. And most of the crimes are about how people can't then share very well. Because how are we doing sharing? 99%? 1%. Get rid of all that. The only crimes that I can really conceive of happening is like, I killed you because you fucked my wife. Where it's kind of justified. You know, there's a civic problem there, but it's not a civic problem that's you don't want the state getting involved with people's love lives. Why else do you kill someone? You know, you're either trying to get something from them or it's about honor and disrespect, I believe. So the idea of a Sharia judge is like a crime counselor who refers to something that everyone agrees on within that context. The idea of zir is that can apply even when not everyone has the same ways of identifying with divinity, which makes it sound great. Mao is how can we make that system applicable to everywhere where there was a police state to try and de-escalate the police state and get something fairer involved? Firstly, it's feed all the people, give them houses. Secondly, give them a place where if there's looking like there's going to be a problem, get them to go there. And if something bad happens, I don't have to make up any punishments. You can derive them on the spot. And obviously, if your community is okay with them, they're okay with them. If they're not. That works if the community is in charge. I won't go near saying what you need to punish people for or how the punishments should work. So I don't think we have to. People are born good. They don't do bad things unless they're scared. I know I want suicide booths that are also functioning execution booths, which might want to also be an all-in-one, with my like lashing machine that lets you give proportionate lashings to a person's body weight, and exactly the right, ratio each time so that people don't go hard on the tranny, whereas they'd go light on someone else. There's a historical precedent that happens. Well, a lashing booth, that's a pretty simple design. Execution/suicide booth. So it's going to be a really haram space where even when you go in there as somebody to get your lashings, which is an exceptional case of this where you would be coming back out, Like, this isn't a violent space. This is a holy space. This is a place where people willingly leave this earth in search of better things. And also a place where, in the highest case of the most ultimate breach of something wrong for society, it came to this place to make the world good again. That if there was this thing which absolutely could not exist alongside the rest of humanity, then in fact everyone apart from them all ganged up on them and agreed in the interest of this good that transcends all of us. Like, no one gets the right to make that decision that someone else could die, but we made a holy pact by saying that this person should be punished. It's what we do already without thinking about it. It's an anti-Foucaultian reference, but I did Foucault good when I went to court. I have a box that's good for killing people. Now, the box that's good for providing euthanasia is the best box for providing executions, so that I want you to be able to get nothing less than a lovely luxury death in, I'm gonna call it Hijra booth for now. um, what's a better name? A police box. I don't know. A warp booth for where things are warped. And to warp from this life to the next. And where our general tendency towards peacefulness is warped. In that we want to kill someone in the name of peacefulness, which is inherently kind of warped. But maybe it can be the right thing to do so far as our wisdom could extend. If someone was really bad, God would just get rid of the earth, or no, get rid of them from the earth. If it was impossible that they could possibly live alongside each other. And before we get to suicide booths, in fact, Moses has given us a very good idea of if someone kills someone, send them to a different city. Hopefully they won't have the same, and especially cities of refuge. So a right for all human beings across the earth I need to establish is that if you're in a place where you're persecuted by everyone, you get to go to cities of refuge, which includes if you're accused of crimes, you get to go to cities of refuge. A city of refuge is a place where, well, once you're there, that's a new start. Whatever happened before doesn't apply. You have a right to carry with you whatever you can carry. You have a right to remove from your past anything you want to remove from your past. A city of refuge. A city of refuge specifically doesn't have any extradition treaties with any other geographic space. Yeah. A city of refuge is always going to be a geography as opposed to like the community of refuge excellence. That's not going to be a thing. I think so. So that if we go to post-fact mediation, I say, you killed me, and then the judge goes, okay, that person needs to be sent to the execution booth. Here is my demand. I am the Islamic State. I'm saying everyone gets to live equally and helpfully, and then I'm adding nothing to what Muhammad has already established for us and which hasn't been removed from the earth or updated or anything like that. I'm going to add one thing to my design, which is from Moses. Peace and blessings be upon those whose names I mention. That if within your community it comes to the point in your law where you say this person needs to be crucified, they're always just allowed to go leave and live in a neutral city. And I insist upon that. And if you break against that, then the entire rest of the community is against you, because fuck you. You're going to get nastier and nastier and nastier until you invade other people. Give thanks to God for the good news. Like, it's been demonstrated. So all of the laws have a hole in them, I'm insisting. Every group has self-governance. You're allowed to do whatever you want within the communities. But that moment that you turn on someone from your community, no matter what you've said and done, if you say our community is now against this person, then they are not your captive. As soon as you say they're not friends with you as your community and that you were going to band your common resources against them, whoever you have, under any circumstances, is allowed to leave your community. Even, yes, if it is that they have killed someone and then they want to go escape. Well, that's kind of what it would have been in prison, that you kill someone and then they move them to somewhere else. But I'm not letting you imprison people because the wardens get dirty, the taxpayers get dirty, and it's not fair on the prisoners. Of course, the wardens are taxpayers. So, self-governance for all peoples, and also cities of refuge. Moses was a murderer. Peace and blessings be upon him. That happened. He wasn't really intending to. But I mean, he was a person who killed. What would you do with Moses, peace and blessings be upon him, in the contemporary state of Israel? He wasn't invited. It's in the Torah. I don't have any superiority over anyone. I'm not being smug at anyone. I'm just like, wow, how good is this prophecy? I love it when things make sense. That's it. That's Mao. What about those suicide booths? Like, I know that I want one of the deaths to be that you've got control over what LEDs are coming in and you get snowed on to death. Maybe whilst there's some like vanilla anesthetic gas that's going to work in process that your body's going to shut down, and that's for suicide and that's for murderers. For that case where the murderer goes in line with Foucault's ideas, yes, I deserve this, as and no, like, respect for the way that works. I have a debt to my society through love of our shared law. I agree. I'm gonna use this opportunity to go up to heaven, not worry about the next 20, 40 years, whatever I might have had about it, whatever I was going to do, living with the fact that I had done that, living with the fact that I had to abandon all of my community for the fact that I had done that. I'd rather pay my price now and go to God. I got respect for that. You can have provision for that, whilst also I insist, as the Khalifa, you gotta let people go if they want to go. They're my people. As soon as you get rid of them, I'm an orphan. Orphans are my people. If you kick people out of your society completely, they're an orphan. I'm allowed to. I'm going to be a mother of orphans. If I'm going to have one episode, that would be it. And I mean it. And Allah allows it. Lashings, they are prescribed as one thing that you can, I suppose, are supposed to uphold as Muslims if you're following the Quran for the case of adultery. It's likely at the time that there was a big de-escalation of what was supposed to happen. Today, it would be a massive escalation of what happens when someone breaks the bonds of marriage or shows infidelity to their partner. If you're not going to show fidelity to your partner, who can I trust you with? with whom can I trust you? If you're not going to respect the agreement you made in marriage, why do I expect that you're going to be good even to your friends? And Christ says it's easy to be good to your friends. Goodness is about being good to your enemies or something like that. I don't remember. But if your respect for others doesn't extend to your spouse, then you're my problem as the Khalifa. Whatever community you're in, I don't have the means to touch you. I don't want to touch you. But within Islam, I do. And you're getting lashings because it's in the Quran. Alhamdulillah. Not all the Muslims need to behave that way. We have a Khalifa now. Is it good for us to behave in different ways? For me, we are a people distinct, but if you're not interested in like having a Khalifa, that's perfectly okay. Islam worked before there was ever a Khalifa. And I'm just going to see us all as the equal and help categories that we got from the Quran. But yeah, I'm a member of a community and it's special to me, but that shouldn't really affect my position as Khalifa. So it doesn't affect my position on groups of Muslims everywhere who don't want to listen to my opinions. Those two are, of course, invited into the safety and protection of the cooperative Islamic State that I'm providing. Excellent. But all of us Muslims should do a census anyway. Because Shaitan's on our side now. Like he was on David's side when he said you should take a census of the Jews. Peace and blessings be upon them. Give me a moment. Thank you. Excellent. I love that point. I think that's all I needed to achieve today. I had no idea setting out, but yeah. I'm allowed to be a Khalifa of an Islamic State that has Muslims in it that don't recognize me as Khalifa. Great, I need no followers whatsoever. It's done. Yeah, I'm not gonna figure out all the bits about suicide booths. What do I call them? Warp boxes. I think I want them as warp boxes. But I mean, in that community, you can call them what you like. Everything needs to be open source. That's the nature of information, that it's indeplenishable and people contribute to it all at once. You can't make information that you think is only going to apply somewhere if you release it out into the world. Your mind, absolutely. Your mind isn't open source. It matters what you think in terms of how you're going to behave towards other people, but everything that you own in your mind is entirely your property. Nothing else can come in and get messy with that. Matters for people who think like, no, if ever it feels like your mind is being invaded by something else, that's not the case. Your mind is able to check back with itself in many different ways, and it does. And your mind is doing some sort of process to, well, wriggle out some kind of disparity, some kind of argument that can come from having information from lots and lots of different places, sometimes we can pick up contradictions. Sometimes one of the ways our minds, within their good process of what it naturally does before we even put effort into thinking of a new idea, sometimes they can have arguments amongst themselves of different groups of ideas so that you'll resolve them. If it's happening, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to respond to those voices at all. But it happens. It happens to most people that will experience some kind of. It's never happened to me in my life, but I know that most people do hear voices. I don't dream. I don't have any fiction in me. But I'm weird. You don't want my voice. God bless you, all the people who have been accused with mental illnesses. Just all of that is false. It doesn't rest on justified grounds, and however justified people felt were in doing those sorts of things. It wasn't justified. A lot of people have found that access to certain chemicals is good for their living. That's the extent of what psychiatry offers. A lot of people have found that talking to each other helps. Confession is the best format for that, if you want to get down to it. That to get rid of your demons, they're only your demons, they're only from your conscience. It's all stuff that you've imagined. So you talk about the stuff that you think is worst. Specifically in what's in you. And that's how you can get over it. You'll feel good as new. Nothing shameful about confessing. It's a much more embarrassing if you're doing it to, well, anyone who's misrepresenting faith in the cases that's come up. Will provide confession as a thing that everyone has access to in the Islamic State. Okay, so we've got universal rights for Islamic State. One of them, going to a refuge. Two, confession. Access to whatever kind of religious stuff you like, no matter where you live. Well, that includes tobacco, that includes cannabis. So far as I know, consider opium. Those people got their culture smashed out. But we as Muslims are so good, we're just allowed. I think is how the wisdom has come around. And like, it's don't inject. If you're not already into injecting, none of the responsible, healthy, perfectly great ways to consume cannabis, opium, involve injectables. Maybe they do, but you don't want to go near the boundaries on this thing. Smoking opium is a perfectly healthy thing to do. There's been a culture of opium smoking everywhere opium has existed, without any police state or any fear of it, for as long as time can remember. I had people and opium in the same place once they figured it out. That all of that is way prior to injections, where the European culture of injections, Afghanistan invading, and fucking with China had a lot to do with the invention of the syringe and indulgence beyond bounds that was pioneered by faggot men of that era. So don't use syringes, or if you're Muslims and men, have sex with men. That was all in don't have sex with men. If you're a man and who is Muslim, don't inject heroin. But if you're going to choose one of them, heroin, inject as much as you like. Death is better than to do these things. We've got another right that applies at the level of communities. That I have no problem with what your community does if all of your community is okay with it and it doesn't affect anyone else's community. Which includes over here, death penalty for men who want to fuck men. Nope. Death penalty for men who fuck men, whilst they can go anywhere they like and do that, but they get any of it, any speck, any trace, any reminder, any memento, any reverberation, any fucking thing about that happening within my space where it's my job, my holy job to protect. You don't do that in the Islamic place unless you go to one of the places where it's the gay friendly Islamic places, but not in that one, and not in the Jew place where they don't want gay fucking, and not in the atheist place where they don't want fucking. Everyone has a right on me not to be near that, which has different. That's an individual right. That there's going to be a community that's able to provide for you. That there's not any of that. Humans went a really long time without doing that, and it's good. Men shouldn't be doing that to other men. It's you don't want to be above and beneath each other. You don't want to have men. It's so bad for women when men do that. We get commoditized as like options to men. It's don't worry about it. If you want to do it, there's going to be plenty of people who want to live near you with your right and wish to. Okay, so none of the. What's a nice term for homophobic? No, I'm homophobic. You see, I'm freaking out about it. None of the homophobic places, reclaim homophobia, are allowed to be near stuff that there's only one in the world of, and that, you know, you can't. Your right to not want to live near homosexual males who are men who are attracted to and pursue romantic inclination and interest with other men. Where it's a cisgendered man and a cisgendered man. And I'm not really suggesting at all ever that someone who's trans feminine wants to fuck a man. I think that is also really disgusting, but that's not exactly what the book says that we have evidences for. Right, people, communities wish to be a certain way can't stop any group anywhere from being able to do something. You're not allowed to monopolize and exclude some people. You know, if the entire moon got filled up with only communities that are homophobic, that's grounds for me to come and invade with whoever I have to say, no, you need some space where some of the gay people are allowed on the moon. It's a ridiculous example. I mean, do I need to say that gays are always allowed to invade? Does that apply to Mecca? No. There's only one Mecca. That's reserved for Muslims. We have a law. We're allowed to follow it, not follow it. It's good for the Muslims who follow, if there are also allowed to be Muslims who partially follow and partially don't, as long as they're absolutely distinct. So that there's something stable on the earth, whilst all the other communities can be equals and helped, whilst there is a community that, for whatever reason, considers itself as helpers more than helped. By God's design. What am I saying? I don't want a lot of communities to be able to work together, or one community to be able to exclude someone else from possibility, except on this one topic, except on this one thing. It's not healthy anywhere. It's so unhealthy anywhere. I know it's not what people say, but it is. People won't say it forever. For now, what? Jeez, it's Allah. He has revelations. Look, it wasn't really clearly established that men weren't supposed to fuck men. It really wasn't in all of the scriptures. That's part of what's good about this. It's a very shocking thing to matter, depending on what your model of causality is. and who has a very good model of causality. We were given a tip in advance that you don't want that happening in your societies. Not everyone was given that tip. Lots of places tried it. Most everywhere in the world agrees, except for the secularized place where culture is dead and hurting, that men don't want to be fucking men. It doesn't mean there's no temptation to go do that. Like, it is a way of getting sex that's way easier than getting it from a woman, but it's going to degrade all the daughters and mothers at the same time, as well as the fathers and sons. And the trans people will be the most hurt. That's the consequence of men deciding it's okay to fuck each other as men. It's been tried, tested. We're at this end of history where all nations have gathered up, and I got one moral imperative to mention that you don't want to do that. Being very first in being a male who's been a prostitute, there's no shame on you at all if you've done it so far. Everyone was talking bullshit in all different directions. There was no way to know the truth, and wasn't remotely spelled out to you in the Torah or in the Bible or in the Quran that actually you don't want to be doing that. It was strongly implied. But men in little cliques looking for each other's approval ruin the world. Over and over again, it's happened. Patriarchy is all that ever attacks a theocracy. The theocracy is the stable thing that's already like been permanent forever. The patriarchy is the thing that the Western civilization cannot be considered older than 250 years. Or I mean, it's so clear. This little thing, and look already, it's. Well, I'm from it, and I'm doing this. It's suicide. I'm the West. I'm dying. I prayed to die. I prayed to be a good Muslim. I resurrected. Alhamdulillah. La ilaha illallah. Muhammad Rasul. Allah, Allah. If you can remember, there's one God, and Muhammad is his messenger. All of Islam follows from that. It puts you on good standing with Allah and a lot of people. And it's the truth. If you want to make sense of history, loads of people don't find the need for any history at all, other than that there is Allah, and once He sent a messenger, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Allah is the best, the most kind. He is well able to represent Himself. He's taking back governance of everything. Now that I've decided to give it to Him, having established that I can do it entirely by myself. Now it's not invasive of God to say, right, I'm in charge now. Him. I'm clearly a her. Him. Allah is in charge. He's the King of Heaven. Fantastic. I know I'm strange as a being. Do we end the stream? SubhanAllah. Okay, peace. Thank you. If you're a person who watches like every stream I have, that's really funny. I think you're an algorithm, maybe. But even so, it's good to have one viewer here and no thumbs up. Perfectly how I want it. Thank you very much. Oh, this is a symbol of oh, we can just reclaim it. Sure. In my next video, inshallah, I intend to speak up. Getting iPads for everyone who's in refugees with everyone who's been displaced and lives in temporary cities, and I suppose temporary housing too. I hadn't really thought about like faraway charity and close charity being the same thing yet. I've been thinking about faraway politics and close politics being the same thing. Uh, we're all on the same side. The categories want to matter as little as possible. When we say everyone wants to have their own communities of laws, like what? As Muslims, we practically have no laws. We just stay away from the bad stuff. Gay sex and alcohol. Can you imagine? Sense of not gay sex, not anything to do with nothing in Islam says anything about lesbians that they're bad. There's a few cheeky winks that only lesbians get that says it's okay, and that's the truth for all the Abrahamic prophecy. No contention about lesbians. No contention about the two daughters who wanted to have sex with their father, and oh no, they used alcohol, so that's bad. No contention about prostitutes. I'm going to be setting up public service, like brothels that people can work in a post-money society, because we want those. Not for me, but sex workers provide an amazing service to community that no one else can do. It's holy, it's special. I'm going to protect it. A mother of whores. And that's for the men, mostly, so that they can go and have company with people who aren't going to judge them and let off steam, with people who like letting off steam and helping people let off steam, and or like helping people letting off steam. It's good for society. I know I want fight clubs. We've got to design cities, got to design what's in them. I want pubs. I want 10 off licenses while selling the most exploitative stuff because it's the most addictive. There's a lot of space wasted. And how much more does it cost to get a bottle of Diet Coke if I can find 100 different stores within 1 mile of me that sell the Diet Coke? When you get rid of money, it's not about how much does it cost, but just, whoa, that's a lot of waste then. So I want to talk about iPads for refugees, which includes the 300,000 people who live in the UK in temporary accommodation. Their temporariness is enforced by a state that says they should be taking care of them, but they're not. As your queen, I'm really sorry for that. I'm going to stop spending all the money on war, so I've got lots of presents to hand out so that you support me as queen. Very transparently. Sensible I policies, right? Where I have to go online and click I consent. Satan did that. It causes rape. You can't debase what consent means. And also all of the things about privacy and data, they've been designed in a scarcity economy of a minority trying to colonize, trying to get as much power and leverage separate from what anything else has. Even things at the same size, they're competing against those. So of course they compete very heavily, in a different class to the human. Sensible I policies. It's not complex to say, I don't have a right to exploit your data for my profit without asking you. I don't have a right to ask you in terms that you can't understand anything. I'll have written something, inshallah, by then that says what are some good principles for how we want to share data in the current day and age. Hopefully I can derive them from my definitions of property, and we'll be able to say something consistent that you'd be able to derive other things from, because we had this consistent system. that would necessarily be minimal to the extent that it's a good idea. iTown app plus robots. Okay, so really it's just to have some fun thinking about, if I've got an iPad, I've got a robot that's good at lifting bricks, putting planks of wood up, doing all the things that you need to make a house, perhaps of the kind that's designed to be easily made by a robot. I've got that robot, I've got the supplies that it needs, and I've got an app. What can I achieve? People are really used to like the video game things where you get to design a city. Well, yeah, we want one of those, and then you press print and the robots come and build the city like you got it. That's all of my ideas so far. It seems good. How's the getting resources there thing work? All the people who are doing jobs gaining resources for things, you're the main reason that I want to set up worldwide like holy brothels with really, really good people in them, and convents of chastity next door, so that just it's good. Because if I'm getting rid of money, I don't have any way to pay you, except for hookers who are interested in being hookers for the common good. And you have been so underpaid. Like, what does it require? The thing I just said. iTown app, you get to design the app, you got the robots here, and they need resources. Well, the people who gain the resources, they're the people who are paid least, because they got to do the most work. I don't think we want reparations as such. I mean, apart from the neglected workers and then and the imprisoned people who have got good evidences of how you're fucked over by the state during the days of oppression, take those evidences to my hookers and they'll give you special attention. We might want to make it formal, like what you can expect, but we don't want to make it formal what you can expect. Just, okay, my hookers, please treat those people well for obvious reasons. Thank you. We're also going to get a really, really good like Uber for hookers app. Do we need that if we've got good spaces for it? No. That was this way to solve a very good problem very well within an oppressive society where the picture changes if you remove the oppression. Just want nice places so that people can get, you don't need it in your homes. You can be going to a place, but you can live there too. How most things are going to be. And then open sourcing Apple. Inshallah, I intend to do that in my next speech act. Thank you. Peace.